The signal asterisk far above the blue planet Earth, a spaceship moved silently in the dark. The ship's name was Starfinder, and it was on a routine mission. Everything was calm. The stars blinked like cold eyes. Inside, Captain Ray Carter sat in the command chair, sipping cold coffee. "Captain," a voice called from the control room. "We've received an unknown signal." Ray stood up. "Where is it coming from?" "Near Saturn, sir. It's weak and old. Might be a distress call." Ray walked toward the screen. A red light blinked slowly, the sign of danger. "Can you decode it?" Ray asked. The technician shook his head. "No, it's not in any known human language." Ray's eyes narrowed. A mysterious signal, a language they didn't recognize. This could be important, or dangerous. He gave the order. "Change course. Let's find the source." The Starfinder moved toward the outer edge of the solar system. The crew was alert. Everyone felt something was different this time. The silence outside was heavy. Even the stars looked distant and cold. After 6 hours, they reached the signal's location. "Captain," the technician said, "we found it." A small escape pod floated in the darkness. Surface was scratched, burned, broken. Ray leaned forward. "Is it alien?" "No human design matches it," the engineer confirmed. "Bring it in." Slowly, the escape pod was pulled into the ship's docking bay. The lights inside flickered. The crew gathered. No one knew what to expect. Ray moved forward in his spacesuit. He placed a hand on the pod's cold surface. Then, with a deep breath, he opened the hatch. Inside was a child. It was small, curled up. Its skin was light blue and soft like silk. Its eyes were closed. 2 thin arms wrapped around its body. It was breathing, but weak. A child. Someone whispered, "An alien child." Ray's heart beat faster. He stepped in and gently lifted the small figure. The child flinched, but didn't open its eyes. "Get medical now," Ray shouted. The crew rushed to help. They placed the child in the medical unit. Sensors beeped. Lights blinked. Computer scanned the body. "It's stable," the medic said, "but it's hurt, dehydrated, exhausted." Ray stood silently, watching the tiny figure. "Where did it come from?" he asked softly. No one had answers. Hours passed. The child finally opened its eyes. They were large and shining, like liquid stars. It looked around, scared and lost. Ray knelt beside it. "It's okay," he said gently. "You're safe now." The child didn't speak. Its lips moved, but no sound came. Then, slowly, it reached toward the translation device. "Double quotes, ... help," the child said in a broken voice. "Help, ... mama ... gone." The room fell silent. Ray felt a chill. This was no accident. Something terrible had happened. And this child was the only survivor. Later, the crew checked the escape pod's data. Most of it was corrupted, but one short video survived. They played it on the main screen. A woman, tall, elegant, alien, held the child close. Behind her, alarms screamed. The ship was under attack. Smoke and sparks filled the room. She placed the child inside the pod. "We'll find you," she said in her own language. "I promise." Then the screen went black. Ray looked at the crew. Need to find out who attacked them. At night, Ray couldn't sleep. He walked into the medical bay. The child was asleep, holding a small glowing crystal. Ray whispered to himself, "You lost your family. You're alone, but not anymore." He didn't know what dangers lay ahead. He didn't know what world the child came from. But he knew one thing for sure. He would protect this child, no matter what. Far away, in the dark space between stars. Another ship moved. Inside it, a woman with glowing eyes stared at a screen. A signal blinked. She gasped. It was the child's life signal. Her hands shook. Her voice was cold and fierce. "My child is alive." She turned to her crew. "Find the human ship. Now." The child didn't speak much. Not in words, but in his eyes. Wide, silver and shining, there was a story. A long, painful story. Inside the medical bay of the Starfinder, Captain Ray sat beside the small alien.
Ah.
The boy watched a glowing ball of light float above the bed, a toy created by the crew to comfort him. It pulsed gently like a tiny star. "What's your name?" Ray asked softly. No answer, the child just looked at him. Ray smiled. "All right, we'll figure it out together." Later, the crew ran tests on the crystal the child carried. It wasn't just a toy. It held memories strange, beautiful, and terrifying. Ray watched the first image. It began on a bright green planet, full of floating islands and tall silver trees. Alien birds flew through purple skies in the middle of a quiet village. The child laughed as he ran through the grass. A tall woman, clearly his mother, chased after him. She wore armor, but her smile was warm. She lifted the child into the air as he giggled. They were happy. They were a family. But the next memory was darker. Explosions, screams, the sky was burning. A fleet of unknown ships attacked their home. The mother ran, holding the child close. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were afraid. They reached a secret launch chamber. She placed the child inside a pod. The child screamed, trying to climb out. She kissed his forehead and whispered something the translator couldn't catch. Then the door closed. Ray turned away from the screen. His jaw was tight. That's how he ended up here. One crew member asked, "Where is this planet? Can we find it?" The navigator replied, "Unknown coordinates. No match in human maps." Another added, "And the attackers, they weren't human either." Ray's voice was low but firm. "So 2 alien civilizations. 1 child, and we're in the middle of it." That night, the child finally spoke again. He sat in bed, eyes fixed on the stars outside the ship's window. Ray sat nearby. "My name," the child whispered, ... is Kale." Ray looked at him. "Kale? That's a good name." Kale nodded slowly. "My mother is strong. She fights bad ships. She will come." Ray smiled gently. "I believe she will." But deep inside, Ray wasn't sure. Far across the galaxy, on a warship shaped like a silver fang, Kale's mother stood before a large star map. The child's signal was confirmed. He was alive. She had searched through asteroid storms, pirate zones, and enemy space. She had burned worlds to find clues. And now, she had a direction. But her face wasn't filled with peace. It was filled with fire. "Someone took him," she whispered. "And someone will pay." Her second-in-command spoke carefully. "Signal shows human tech nearby." Yashara turned sharply. "Then I will start with the humans." Back on Starfinder, Kale began drawing on the glass window with his finger, tracing lines, circles, and symbols. The crew recorded the drawings. It looked like a map, or a warning. "Maybe he's telling us where he came from," said one. "Engineer?" "No," Ray said, watching Kale's eyes. "He's showing us who destroyed it." As Kale fell asleep that night, he whispered in his strange language. The translator caught only 3 words: flames, shadows, return. Ray stared. At the stars, something was coming, and they were not ready. Space is silent, but a mother's scream can echo through galaxies. On the bridge of the Valari warship Shantari, Commander Yashara stood tall, her silver armor shining under red emergency lights. Her face, calm yet burning with rage, stared at a blinking dot on the screen. It was faint, small, but she knew what it was. Her son. After weeks of silence, his life signal had returned. Her heart, once heavy like stone, now burned with purpose. She raised her voice, set a course. Maximum speed. Her crew looked nervous. "Commander, the signal is near human territory." "I don't care," Yashara growled. "No one touches my blood and lives." Back on Starfinder, Captain Ray watched Kale sleep. The alien child had begun to trust them. He smiled now, spoke short words, drew pictures of stars and ships, and glowing towers in the sky, but sometimes he cried in his sleep. Sometimes the lights around him flickered, reacting to his emotions. His species is linked to energy, the ship's doctor said. His body reacts to fear, anger, love. Ray nodded. He's not just a child. He's a signal tower. Across the stars, the Shantari entered a dark zone, a silent graveyard of ships, all destroyed in old battles. The crew found what Yashara was looking for, a broken beacon, a human message floating beside it. Star Sector 9B civilian ship Starfinder investigating alien signal. One life form rescued. Mission log active. Yashara's breath froze, then sharpened. So, the humans had her child. Her fingers gripped the edge of the console. She didn't know he was rescued. She only knew he was taken to her, it looked like. Kidnapping, she turned to her second-in-command. Prepare weapons. Meanwhile, Kale was showing Ray a symbol, a crest. Like wings made of fire. That's your family, Ray asked. Kale nodded. My mother wears it on her chest. Like this. He tapped his own armor, mimicking her movements. Ray smiled. She sounds strong. She is, Kale said proudly. Stronger than lightning. But his smile faded. She will be angry. If she thinks I was hurt, Ray raised an eyebrow. Why would she be angry? Kale looked away. Valari mothers destroy worlds for their children. Out in space, alarms blared. The Starfinder's crew ran to battle stations. A massive warship had appeared just beyond Saturn's rings. Unidentified vessel approaching fast. Ray saw the design curved, elegant, powerful. Kale gasped when he saw it on screen. My mother. But the ship's weapons were already locking on. Ray stepped forward. Try to open a channel. Inside the Shantari, Yashara watched her son appear on her screen. Alive, safe, and standing beside a human. Ray, she didn't know him. She didn't know his kindness. She saw only what her grief showed her. A human holding her son like a trophy. A human ship near a destroyed escape pod. She thought, they took him. They used him. She didn't wait. Fire. The Starfinder shook. Explosions sparked down the halls. No critical damage yet, the engineer shouted. Ray clenched his teeth. We're not here to fight, he turned to Kale. Can you talk to? Her Kale nodded slowly and placed his tiny hand on the ship's console. The lights flickered. Then, strange sound, like music, filled the bridge. On the enemy ship, Chara heard it, her son's voice, singing the lullaby she once sang to him. Her heart stopped. Tears welled up in her glowing eyes. She whispered, Kale. The attack stopped. Silence returned. Then a voice came through the speaker. A mother's voice, shaking with emotion. Human, if you have harmed him, I will destroy your son, Ray replied. Calm, but strong. I saved his life. Nothing more. Another. Pause. Let me see him, she demanded. Kale stood before the camera. Mother, he said softly. Don't hurt them. He's my friend. Yashara looked at her child, alive, smiling, calling a human. Friend, her hands trembled, her war was melting. Ray leaned forward. You're welcome to come aboard. No tricks, just a mother and a captain. Screen blinked off. No one spoke. Then the Shantari began to dock. Inside the airlock, the doors hissed open, and for the first time, a human and a Valari war commander stood face to face. Yashara walked past Ray without a word, and dropped to her knees before her son. Kale ran into her arms. She held him so tight. The stars themselves seemed to pause. Then slowly, she looked at Ray. Her voice was quiet. You've done something no Valari will ever forget. Ray nodded. Just did what was right. Yashara stood. For us, that is the act of gods. Ray frowned. I'm not a god, she smiled. That's what makes it holy. Asterisk peace is fragile, especially when fear still sits at the table. The docking. Bay of the Starfinder was quiet, too quiet a moment ago. Yashara, the Valari war commander, had walked in like a storm. Now, she was still arms wrapped around her son. Kale. Captain Ray Carter watched from a distance. His crew stood ready, nervous, armed. Valari were powerful, fast, dangerous, and they were in a human ship now. Finally. Released Kale. He looked up at her, smiling. But her eyes were scanning the room, every movement, every shadow. Her instincts whispered. Trapped. Ray stepped forward. Calm, open hands. We don't mean harm, said Y. Shara looked at him. You carry weapons. You expect harm. We just met a ship that fired on us, he said with a small smile. She almost smiled back. Almost. Ray invited Yashara to the command deck. She followed, her sharp eyes never resting. Kale walked beside her, clutching her hand like a lost memory come home. In the control room, Yashara studied the ship. Everything was human. Got cold steel, clean white lights, straight lines, harsh screens, so different from Valari's ships, where controls flowed like rivers of light, but what caught her attention was a small drawing. Taped beside the captain's chair, a child's drawing. Kale had drawn it, 2 figures, one tall, one small, standing under stars, holding hands, a human and a Valar. Ray noticed her staring. He made that yesterday, he said. Said it was hope. Yashara didn't reply, but something changed in her face. Later, she sat alone in a guest chamber. Kale was asleep again. Safe for the first time in weeks, Yashara removed her armor slowly. Her hand brushed over an old scar, the price of war, the cost of command. Then she looked at the stars outside the window. Humans saved him, but why? What do they want in return? She didn't trust Dicely. She couldn't afford to. On a nearby moonbase, however, others were watching too. A hidden outpost received signals from the Starfinder, not human. Not VALARI. Third party? Unknown. They had seen. Kale's energy signature? Rare? Valuable? One voice crackled in static. The child is alive. We go now. Extract and erase all witnesses. Back on the Starfinder, alarms screamed. Incoming ship. Stood instantly, Valari. No, sir, the technician said. Unknown ID, fast cloaked before now. This is not a peaceful visit. Ray's eyes darted to Yashara, who had entered the room in full armor again. Her expression turned cold. You called enemies to us? Ray snapped. We didn't call anyone. The ship shook. First impact. Shara pulled her weapon. So did Ray's crew, guns raised. Tension like a stretched wire. Kale woke up and ran into the room. Stop, he screamed. All weapons froze in midair. And then lights blew out, a blackout, total silence. Ray activated emergency lights, red glow, heavy, breathing. Footsteps in the hall. Not human. Not Valari. Something else had boarded the ship. In the dark, shapes moved fast. Ray fired. So did Y. Single quotes. Shara, for the first time they fought side by side. Back to back, covering each other. Left flank. Ray shouted. Y. Single quotes. Shara spun and took down a shadowy figure. What are they? Ray yelled. Hunters, Yashara hissed. Scavengers of rare bloodlines, Kale. They both turned. Kale was missing. In the silence that followed, Ray's voice was soft, deadly serious. They took him. Shara looked at him, eyes filled with rage. No, she said. We hunt now. Ray nodded. Together. Sometimes heroes are born, sometimes they're mistaken for gods. The hangar was full of smoke. Sparks danced in the air like fireflies. Ray stood with his weapon raised. His breathing was heavy, his heart heavier. Kale was gone, the unknown. Attackers had taken the child and vanished into deep space, leaving only chaos behind. Commander Yashara paced like a lion. Her armor was scorched. Her voice was sharp with fury. This was not a random attack, she said. They came for him, Ray agreed. But why? Who are they? She turned. You don't know his blood, do you? Ray blinked. He's just a kid. Yashara stepped closer. He's not just anything. Kale is the last heir of the Flameborn line. A royal bloodline in our world, believed to be blessed by the stars. Ray frowned. So, he's royalty? No, she said. He's sacred. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, deep in an asteroid field, a hidden lab hummed with quiet machines. Kale sat locked behind an energy wall. Alone, scared, a strange being. Long and thin, with metallic eyes, stood on the other side. We don't wish to harm you, the voice said calmly. You are special. Kale didn't respond. The figure leaned in closer. Your protector. You will come for you. That is what makes this game fun. Back on Starfinder, the Valari crew had fully arrived, responding to Yashara's call, and they had seen something strange. They saw humans, and Valari had fought side by side. They saw Yashara, their war hero, speak to Ray not with command, but with respect, one soldier whispered. She bows her head when he speaks. Another added, he walks with her child. That is sacred. Right. And by the time the full fleet joined them, a rumor had started. Not from Ray, not from Kale, but from the Valari soldiers themselves. He is the Flame Guard, the one from the prophecy. Ray had no idea he was busy working on a plan to find Kale. He had no crown, no staff, just a worn jacket, tired eyes, and a promise. I told him he wasn't alone, Ray said quietly. I meant it. Yashara stood behind him. She watched this human, not powerful, not royal, but full of something more dangerous, loyalty. She remembered an old story her mother once told her. If the Flameborn is ever lost, he shall be found by a stranger. From the ashes, and that stranger will not burn. She didn't believe it then. She wasn't sure now, but the Valari did. When Ray walked into the war room, the Valari stood up. They bowed their heads. Ray looked confused. What's going on? Yashara didn't answer. A young Valari soldier stepped forward and handed him a glowing metal badge, the mark of the Flame Guard. The soldier said, We honor you. Ray stared at the badge. This is a mistake. Yashara spoke gently. Maybe, or maybe you became more than you meant to. Outside, the fleet prepared to move. Dozens of Valari ships aligned behind the start. They were no longer just searching for a child. They were following a legend. Ray stood at the front window, badge in hand, confused and overwhelmed. Yashara walked beside him. Sometimes, she said softly, when people have nothing left, they will believe in anything that gives them hope. Ray shook his head. I'm not your hope. I'm not your God. No, she said. But you're the only one who went into the dark. It's for a child that wasn't yours. She looked him in the eye. That's more than most gods ever did. Far away, Kale sat in his prison. He whispered to himself, My fire is not gone. He is coming. And the walls around him began to flicker, as if the stars themselves had heard. Asterisk, it is a strange thing to be followed not for your strength. For the lies others believe about you, the Valari fleet moved like a wave of silver through the stars. Dozens of ships, thousands of eyes, and all of them now looked to one man, Ray Carter, a human, a stranger, and now to them, a symbol. Inside the Starfinder, Ray stood alone in the observation deck. Below, on a wide hangar floor, hundreds of Valari soldiers trained, moved, and saluted with perfect rhythm. He wasn't used to the silence of being watched. Not like this. He wasn't wearing a crown, but the rumors had done the work for him. They didn't call him captain anymore. They called him Starbearer, Firewalker, chosen by the flame. It was surreal, almost laughable. Terrifying. Yashara entered behind him. She watched his face in the reflection of the glass. You don't like this? She said. Ray didn't turn. No, I don't. Then why accept the badge? He was quiet, then he answered, because Kale's still out there. And if their belief gets me close to him, I'll wear 100 badges. Yashara nodded slowly. Then you understand the power of a symbol, even if you didn't choose it. Meanwhile, on the hidden moon base, Kale was no longer weak. He had stopped crying. Now, he was listening to the voices in the walls, to the hum of energy in the ground. to the pulse of fire in his blood. His mother had told him stories of the old power, the flame callers, and though he was young, something ancient inside him stirred. One night he touched the crystal around his neck and whispered a single word: "Awaken." The walls glowed. His captors panicked, and across the stars, Ray felt it. Back on the Starfinder, the navigators shouted, "We found him!" A glowing trail had opened, not in coordinates but in energy, flame pulse left behind by Kale. Somehow, Ray stood at the center of the command deck, Yashara beside him. Her soldiers. Behind him, everyone waited for the order. Ray swallowed. He didn't feel holy. He felt tired, but he raised his voice anyway. Set course. Follow the flame. The fleet moved. Hours later, they passed a rogue planet, black and cold. Trap missiles fired from its surface. The lead Valar ship exploded into dust. Chaos. Ray's crew panicked. Some ships fell back. Yashara gave orders, but something unexpected happened. Ray stepped forward, not shouting, not commanding like a general. He spoke with calm, human fire. "Stay with us. We're not here to rule. We're here to protect." The flame, protect the boy, hold the line. And they did, because it wasn't a god who spoke. It was a man who believed in something more. They pushed through the trap, destroyed the outpost, and finally, they reached the moon base. Ray led the entry team, Yashara beside him. The Valari watched with silent respect. Doors were blown open. Ray ran through smoke, shouting Kale's name. No answer. Not until they reached the center chamber. There, floating in a sphere of burning light, Kale, eyes glowing, arms raised. His small voice whispered, "You came." Ray smiled. "Told you I would." But as Kale floated down into Ray's arms, the walls trembled. Something deep below had awakened with him. Something old. A weapon. Secret. A guardian of the flame. The final enemy was not gone. It had just opened its eyes. Some stories end in silence. Some in fire. But the most powerful ones end in a choice. Ray Carter held Kale in his arms, surrounded by fire, but it wasn't burning him. The light pulsed like a heartbeat rising from the boy's chest. Ancient energy, sacred blood. A voice echoed from the shadows of the underground base. Low, mechanical, alive. The Flameborn has been awakened. Protocol activated. Target acquired. Defense unit, engage. A giant machine stepped forward from the wall. It wasn't just a guardian. It was a judge, built to test anyone who touched the child of the flame. Ray stared up at it. "Of course," he muttered. One last fight. Inside the base, Valari ships hovered, weapons. Armed. Yashara watched the sky change colors, the clouds above. The base swirled red and white like a bleeding wound. Something was happening below. She didn't wait for permission. "Drop me," she ordered, and she fell from her ship like a star. Falling back to Earth inside, the Guardian stepped toward Ray. "You are not Valari. You are not flame. You are false." Ray handed Kale gently to one of his crew, then turned to face the machine. "Maybe, but I was the one who came." He didn't have powers, he didn't have armor, but he had something better, Will. The Guardian attacked, lightning fast. Ray ducked, rolled, fired his blaster, useless. The machine was made of star steel. Ray shouted, "Get Kale out of here." The crew ran, but Kale resisted. "No, he's here because of me." Then came a sound like thunder, a crash. Yashara burst through the wall. Eyes blazing, spear of plasma in hand. She landed beside Ray without a word. They stood together again. This time, not as enemies, or even allies, but as family, forged in fire. She spoke to the machine in her native tongue. "He is not Valari. He is not divine. But he carried my child through darkness. And that is holy enough." The Guardian paused. Its systems struggled. Two conflicting truths. The human was not chosen. But the chosen had chosen him. The machine raised one final arm to strike, and Kale, small, glowing, fearless, stepped between them. He placed his tiny hand on the guardian's chest. "He is my fire, and fire chooses where it lives." Light erupted. The machine shut down. Fell silence. Outside. The storm above the base vanished. On every Volari ship. The lights changed color from red to gold. It meant one thing. Balance had been restored in the days that followed. The Volari held a great ceremony. Ray stood quietly as hundreds bowed to him. He hated it. Why? Shara stood beside him in full armor, proud but knowing. "This is not worship," she whispered. "This is thanks." He looked down at Kale, who smiled up at him. "You were my god," Kale said softly, "when I needed one." Ray knelt, "And you are my reason to keep going." Later that night, they offered Ray a home, a title, a place. In their culture, forever. But Ray refused. "I'm just a man. Let your people have their legends. I'll go back to being human." Shara nodded. "You will always be more than that to us." As Ray's shuttle prepared to return to Earth. Kale ran to him one last time. A tight hug. No words, just warmth. Ray looked at Yashara. "Take care of him." She smiled. "I always will." As the stars swallowed Ray's ship, the legends began. They would call him many things. Starbearer, Flameguard, the human who carried the divine. But Ray, he'd just remember a scared little boy in an escape pod, whispering, "Help," and he'd answered. Not because of destiny, not because of prophecy, but because it was right.